time we've done this. I do miss everybody, and I miss even having the secretary come to our state and show them a little bit of what's going on and how it's working. But we'll make the best of this. We got a great program over the next 3-4 days here, and I think it's so fitting to have the secretary join us for this, simply because he has been a champion in so many respects for our industry and for our partnership. But with that, I want to welcome Secretary Perdue. I want to say a little bit about him here so that people understand who he is, where he came from, and he can explain a little bit of what he's doing. But Sonny Perdue came with his knowledge of agriculture the old-fashioned way. He was born into it. He was born in Bonaire, Georgia, and from childhood and through his life and business and as an elected official, he experienced the industry, and every perspective of it. He's uniquely qualified as a former farmer, agribusinessman, veterinarian, state legislator, and as governor of Georgia. He became the 31st United States Secretary of Agriculture secretary on April 25th, 2017. Since that day, Secretary Perdue has been a tremendous asset to NASDA. Mr. Secretary, we thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you, Doug. I hope you and your members now know that we really have a mutual admiration society. You could tell from the very beginning of my rating your group for our undersecretaries how much respect I have for NASDA and all of its members, because frankly, you all in your states, in your respective states, serve on a role that's closest to the agricultural community. You know your farmers and producers by name, and I think it's important that we here in Washington rely on you all as a listening post of that, because your ears are close to the ground. And while this is a great job, you can't be everywhere all at the same time. So your voices are well respected and listened to, and we pay attention to the things that you all tell us. So it's good to be with you again today. I know you're disappointed, Doug, that we were not able to come to your home state. It's always good to be able to show off the things that you're proud of there. And but one of these days, after all this crazy pandemic is over, I'd like to come and see what you had in store for us there. But you know, all of you, as your top agricultural official in your state, you're promoting and elevating agriculture all the time. That's part of the job, and we want to be your partner in that as we collect and coordinate and complement one another in that job. We want to be your partner. That partnership is based obviously on a strong relationship between the states and the federal government. I believe that was laid out in the 10th Amendment. As a former governor, you might imagine I support that unique 10th Amendment relationship and federalism. So, and I'm also happy that our key leaders at USDA understand that relation too. As I said, many of them have come from NASDA, from Ted McKinney to Greg Ibaugh, Jamie Clover Adams, Bill Northey, Richard Fordyce, just to name a few. And what I think they've enabled us to do is to bring that local mindset that realize that we're policies and the regulations that we do is affecting somebody's life out there in agricultural business. And that's what we want to be ever mindful of. And I think I'm happy to serve a boss that I believe President Trump understands that partnership well. He also understands the vital importance of agriculture. I've been around for a long time. I cannot ever remember agriculture being mentioned so many times and so aggressively out of the Oval Office. I think it's because he truly has an affection and affinity for people who till the soil and people who produce the noble cause of producing our food, fuel, fiber in that area. And he continually asks me, I don't ever leave the Oval Office actually, when he says, Sonny, how are our farmers doing, you know, and you take care of them. So I think that empowers me at USDA to do a job that I think is needed to be done. So as you know, it's been a challenging few years for American agriculture. And those challenges only intensified during the corona pandemic, and farming and agriculture was not could not escape that. Although, just typically like the resilient people they are, our ag producers, ranchers continue on, and frankly, we at USDA have been challenged, but we've done a lot of work to try to mitigate those challenges and concerns, and to help as best we can. As you know, at the direction of President Trump, we announced a $19 billion program for immediate assistance for America's farmers and ranchers under the coronavirus, under the Corona Food Assistance Program called CFAP. Everything in U.S. government has to have an acronym. It's CFAP. The first 16 billion of this funding is a form of direct payments to farmers to help them through those tough times. What wasn't clearly understood, frankly, was that we wanted to get that money out quickly, and that money really went through April 15th for the damages incurred in the first quarter, essentially there. And that's why we are have listened out and will be coming with a CFAP 2 program as well. But through this entire process, we've tried to listen to our producers and adding additional commodities to what's being covered. We are, as I indicated, we're gearing up to announce CFAP round 2, which will incorporate more of the feedback to make a program that works best for the people who truly need it. You know, the second part of the program was CFAP, the Farmers to Family Food Box, and that's been an overwhelming success in so many ways that just last week, President Trump visited with me in North Carolina and Asheville, and at the same time authorized an additional $1 billion for this program. That was during the period of time. I remember I got a call early one morning when the president was reading and hearing about milk being dumped, vegetables being plowed under, potential euthanization of animals. He said, you know, Sonny, do we have enough food? And I said, yes, Mr. President, we have enough, but it's misaligned, and we had to pivot very quickly to get pivoted from the food sector going into restaurants and communal settings into our grocery stores. But this has been a highly acclaimed program we've been very proud of. What I'm most proud of is our folks at USDA stood this up in less than 3 weeks. And it's just, it's typically these kind of contracting procurement programs take 12 to 18 months in the federal government. I think everyone was stunned in how quickly this program and how well, without protest, it's run, frankly, and we're very proud of that. So we've been partnering with our national and regional and local suppliers, those whose workforce was significantly impacted by the closure of the restaurants, the hotels, and other food service businesses, and purchasing their protein, processed meat, dairy, produce to box up and give the families in need. I call it a win-win-win situation, helping our farmers have a market, helping those middlemen in the middle whose trucks and workforce were idle to go back to work. And then certainly the best part of all was to be able to provide food to those people who didn't maybe know where their next groceries were coming from. So I've traveled to see this firsthand, the food that was otherwise go to waste be distributed to people who had fallen on hard times. And it's a great example of Americans helping Americans, and something that we all should be proud of. And I appreciate NASDA's help in helping us to direct people that in need and other people who could be distributors. But in addition to the CFAP program, USDA has worked again tirelessly through the pandemic to help our agricultural industry in other ways. As you may remember, we had a crisis early in the summer, late spring and summer, when our meat processing facilities were being closed due to large outbreaks of their workforce. And we worked hand in hand with the CDC and OSHA to minimize that disruption. And fortunately, the president empowered USDA with the Defense Production Act through an executive order. But the good news is we never had to implement the power of that Defense Production Act, because it empowered us to work with local communities and states and you all and your companies out there to resolve this issue. And we had a great V bottom in this production coming back up. And I think most people are able to tell that in the meat cases and grocery stores around the country as well. So we're happy to have that result. But during the height of the travel ban, we worked with the Department of Labor, Homeland Security, State Department to increase the flexibilities and reduce the burdensome regulations to ensure that our farmers could also hire and bring in H-2A workers. That was a huge concern, and we fortunately were able to intervene in that. We directly engaged with the Small Business Administration to ensure farmers would be eligible for both the Paycheck Protection Program as well as the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Advance Loan Program. And finally, we worked with FEMA and our federal partners to make sure that the critical food supply workers had access to those PPE equipment to stay safe while maintaining our food supply chain. And I think that's just a small sampling of the work that we've done together in the last few months, and we've never really stopped. I'm very proud of our team. We're still working every day to help farmers and ranchers during this pandemic. And I want you to know, Doug and Barb and all your members, we stand ready here to serve you and your members and all that you need. And I think I've probably droned on enough. I think the best thing is that we can have a conversation over Q&A, and anything your members need to ask, then we'd be happy to discuss with them. So again, I'd rather see you in person, but I'm happy to join you here today and by video.
Mr. Secretary. So what we'd like to do is, if everybody, if you move your cursor around, you should be able to see a place to raise your hand. Let Amanda know. I can't see him, so she has the screen there that she can catch everything. And with that, we will call on each one of you. I will tell you that we're going to give preferential treatment to our members first. And you may ask a question. Are people having some challenges trying to, actually, if you go into the, I just saw it, the participant list, and at the bottom it says raise hand. That's what you need to do.
I think probably, Doug, I just covered everything. There are probably no questions.
Secretary, we have a question from Commissioner Ryan Quarles, Kentucky.
Thank you, President Goring. Thank you, Secretary Perdue, for your time today and welcoming us to our 2020 annual meeting. I wish we were in North Dakota as well, but I was wondering if you could give us an update on trade. I know that it's been overshadowed by COVID, but we had a lot of great successes this year with Japan, USMCA, China phase 1, and I wonder if you could just give us an update on trade and agriculture, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ron, for the opportunity. I think we have had a good year in spite of everything else. I think, obviously, as you mentioned, the Japan agreement, the Korea agreement, and even in other areas, we continue to work with the EU and the UK. I think the UK Brexit is a new opportunity for a fresh start. We got a little small deal with the EU the other day that was minimal, but we hope it'll open the door to further things. But I think the China phase 1 has been the biggest issue, along with USMCA that went into effect in July 1. We're really happy to have that certainty around those relationships. Phase 1 with China got off to a fairly slow start. It really was just signed in early February, and then the world got overwhelmed with the pandemic of COVID. But I can tell you, over the last 6 weeks, they really stepped up and are saying everything, all the right things about their desire to fulfill the commitment. I'm hopeful they will. In doing that, you've seen record corn shipments and even bean shipments here recently. And I believe they have the capacity. China imports a lot of things. You also know we were a little concerned early in the spring over the amount of imports they were getting from Brazil, but that's the counter-cyclical nature of our production. That's Brazil's harvesting time. That's when they ship primarily. And then they typically come in early summer to the U.S. market, and our capacity to store and reserve, which is better than Brazil's. So we think we will own that market probably through next January again until the next Brazilian crop comes in. And we believe China needs it. We think they're rebuilding their swine herd, and so their feed ingredients will be good. We've seen the good news is record exports of beef there, and just really got back into it, as well as poultry. So we think the other good news about that is that technically underneath all the numbers that you see, they really did a fairly honest job in trying to resolve these non-tariff technical glitches that we'd had for a long time in doing that. So we still got some. It's not perfect, but right now we think we're on a good run. And if we can continue, we feel really good about the phase one agreement, which is you see the crop coming on for the most part. We've got the tragedy in Iowa with the windstorm, and we'll always have other issues in other parts of the country, Louisiana, and in the hurricane. But for the most part, the crop that's coming on looks like we're going to need a strong export run.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Quarles. We have time for maybe one more question here.
I have two questions, Commissioner, one from Commissioner Strain and one from Secretary Redding. So Commissioner Strain.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Mr. Secretary. How are you doing today?
Well, Dr. Strain, I imagine we're doing better than your state, and we sure think about you down there. We've seen the images of the disaster, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and how we can help you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And that was the purpose of my question. The devastation along the coast in Cameron is almost 100%. There was a 17-foot tidal surge that went in. Complete herds of cattle are no longer there. And then a lot of structural damages to barns and to other equipment also. We probably about a third of our rice crop had not yet been harvested. We are currently trying to get water off of our cane fields. We're moving that direction. We're doing that by gravitation flowing and clearing out, cutting levees, etc. And we had a lot of water, and plus we had damage to our cotton crops. But overall, I want to thank all of you for everybody for pitching in. And I guess the fundamental question is that, do you anticipate that there will be an ad hoc relief bill dealing with the effects of the derecho through the central part of the country, as well as the unfunded losses that we have in the state? Because some of our farmers lost everything: their houses, their barns, their crops, their herds, everything. Yeah. And so
obviously, you know, that real answer to that question is up to Congress. Yes, sir. We'd be happy to implement anything like that. We did have I think we're trying to calculate any kind of money we had left over from the WHIP Plus there, and we'll direct it wherever we can with the authority of Congress to,
yes,
to do that. That was time limited, and we're actually they gave us kind of carte blanche through 2019 last year, but we don't have that same authority this year. But I think probably with Congress looking at the Iowa situation and now the Louisiana hurricane situation, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see some of that. And we are calculating what type of resources we would have to do that. Obviously, the great thing about it is the safety net for most of the crops, including rice and cotton and others commodity crops there.
Yes.
The crop insurance is the best safety net, but and then obviously commercial insurance on all the structures that way. But whenever you had kind of total damage like that, safety nets are never enough. And we've operated certainly with Michael and other hurricanes prior to that, and with some help.
Thank you. And thank you also for the flexibility in different feeding programs to meet the ever-changing needs in regions. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Strain. Secretary Redding, do you have a short question?
Yeah, Commissioner Goring, thank you for hosting this conference virtually. Mr. Secretary, thank you. It's good to see you and hear you. I want to say thanks for your support of the farms and farmers, but also what you've done in the food assistance area, particularly. And certainly what you've noted this morning, but also I understand just a couple of hours ago, you announced some flexibilities or further flexibilities for school And just want to say thanks for that. If you could speak to that for a moment, I'd appreciate it. And certainly the support of PFAP and the Families to Food Boxes, and just really an extraordinary response on the food assistance side. So thank you.
Well, it's been unprecedented actually in the amount of food that's gotten out the door in that way. And with this Farmer to Family, the president has indicated just added another $1 billion to that last Monday, which makes it a $4 billion project. That the authority for that actually really just goes through this fiscal year. So we'll have to see if Congress wants us to continue that, and they'll let us know about that. But the TFAP program, their money, I've been to food banks all over the country and seen the distribution. So it's been a real thrill. Today we were here and announced a continuation or extension of the school feeding program. You probably know that USDA works with our local school nutritional professionals all across the country to feed school kids. And it's typically in a free and reduced basis. But since the pandemic, we've given the authority, and the CARES Act, the funding gave us to feed every child between 2 and 18, whether in school or not. And there's so much a disparity between whether kids are coming back to school or learning virtually. And there was a lot of confusion for school. The free and reduced program is safe. That's a common program that will continue on. There's no threat of any of those kids being cut off. But this program actually provides a seamless summer option for school systems, even if their kids are not there, to make sure they're fed, as well as our other school feeding sites that may or not be related to schools, to make sure that kids that are in the communities and community eligibility can get meals that way as well. It's a big endeavor. Our agricultural marketing service helps to procure this food, get it to the right places, and I think it's been overwhelmingly positive. I think it just demonstrates the compassion and the generosity of America, and we take care of a lot of people in the world, but this is taking care of our own, that many people have never found themselves in this place before. So that's when I talk about the noble business of growing and producing food. That's the end result of that is this win-win-win program of Farmers to Family. While we're rescuing and preserving food from being destroyed and employing those that deliver the food in the middle, the real thrill is watching these people who may not know where their next groceries are coming from. So it's been a great effort, and I appreciate you asking about that.
Thanks for the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Redding. Sonny, I have a question. You had talked about WIP Plus, and I know one of the things is it was a bit open-ended for applications when they could be received. Is there a thought of maybe looking at those eligible applications, those that need to apply from 2018 and 19, and maybe putting some type of deadline so that there can be some type of appraisal done on what types of funds need to be used, just to finish those off and then start to address potentially issues for 2020, because 2020, last I counted, I think it's either 11 or maybe 13 states that have issues, including us. But
well, that's an interesting point you bring up, Doug, in the fact that there was no end time. And it's frankly a mistake in that regulation or the rule that went out covering that. There has to be some kind of a closed door on that WIP Plus program there so we can operate in real time, because people go back. And as you indicated, there are situations that occurred in 2020 here that we need to do. I know up in the Dakotas, for instance, we saw actually more preventive planning in, I think, South Dakota than we saw last year in 19, where you thought that was a record. But in some counties, we saw more this year locally. And I think we need to address that so we can really know what we've got to deal with and calculate that. But as long as that door is open for continued applications there, that's a challenge. And I think we need to work on that. Bill Northey and I were talking about that last week.
thank you, Mr. Secretary. I know we're right up against the top of the hour when we're supposed to adjourn, but before we let you go, we do have one more thing. It's actually a pleasure of mine to present this to you. Since 2016, we have been doing the Ambassador's Circle Award. And this year, we actually have two people that that were nominated and chosen. And Mr. Secretary, you were one of them. And I got to tell you, the primary reason behind this is because of your leadership, because of your personal effort, and because you've been so accommodating. I got to tell you, from day one, my colleagues have said it, others have said it, I've experienced it. You've been very welcoming as our members come and visit you. You've been warm, you've been inclusive, you've been responsive. It's not only been a great partnership, and you've continued to try and foster and build on that partnership, but you've also been a friend. And we very much appreciate that. And with that, we want to present you with the Ambassador's Circle Award. Unfortunately, I can't hand it to you right now, so we're going to mail that to you. But I don't know if you have any final comments or thoughts, but thank you.
Well, you're very kind, and I am sincere when I say that we know one another. We know what the business is. So we get a lot of accolades, but actually coming from NASDA and from a group of people on the ground within the states that know agriculture, this is a genuine honor and a sincere appreciation for recognizing, I think, what is a great partnership. As we started off, I think it's really a mutual admiration society, and I think the best of the way federalism should work with state and local partnerships and doing that. So we accept it on behalf of USDA, frankly, and all those people that we reach out, the people you call, and your folks reach out to day by day, knowing I'm not available, but they understand that we're serious about that motto, to do right and feed everyone, and that means working with you all to get that done.
Well, thank you again. On behalf of NASDA, on behalf of our great members, we wish you all the best, and we are honored to have you kicking off our NASDA convention and annual meeting. Thank you.
You all have a good meeting, Doug. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonny.